Okay, so now we have a good understanding of optionals and how to use them. But let's dive even deeper into what optionals actually are and how they actually work, because we can see how we can use them in the code and how we can easily use them in the code and how they can help us really to write cleaner code. But you can also create your own optionals, but we won't do that until the end of this. Let's have a deeper dive into what an optional actually is. Well, we know we can use this question mark, but what about if we don't want to use the question mark? What about if we want to use the optional itself? And we're just going to say it's type string. And this is generics. It's not just don't, if you haven't seen generics yet, just understand that the optional is the thing that we're talking about, right? And the stuff with inside these angle braces is the type that this message is. So it's going to be the type inference for this one message. It's going to be string, and that is going to be an optional, all right? And optional is nothing more than an enum with a wrapped value, okay? Don't worry, don't panic too much. We're going to talk through this. So just to recap about this, if we say switch message, all right, because remember, a enum is an enumerable and we can use a switch statement on this. So we can say none is one of the options, and it's just say no value, and then the other one is then sum, all right, and this then has a value, and we can then print out value is equal to then value, which just gives us an unwrapped version, safe version of it. And when we run the code, you can see the value is equal to hello world, and when we set it to nil, the value is then no value. Right, there we go. This is now us using an optional value. But so without looking too deep into enums, I just want to show you what we are basically talking about, and these are associated values of the enum. So when this enum was created, it had this generic wrapped type. That's why it's wrapped. It doesn't care about what type is inside of it. It's just saying, hey, when you use this sum, right, this is going to have a type here, and it needs to be a concrete type, right? So it can't be another generic. It actually has to be a concrete type, and that would be the type of string, an integer, an object, an array, and something is actually a type that's in memory. So you've got to allow the compiler to know exactly what type it is at compile time, right? But that's generics, and don't worry about it, because generics are a difficult thing to understand. But if you want to use optionals properly to their full extent, you've got to understand just that little bit, all right? So I hope I haven't lost you already. So we know that an optional is a enum. An enum has associated value with it. One of the cases is none, okay? And if we look once again at optionals here, we can see none and sum. And that's the only thing else it has. It has some other functions which we're not going to worry about right now, but well, they're not relevant to this one video. So if we want to make our own optional, right, let's just move this down a little bit. And what we're going to say is we're going to say enum, and we're going to call it my optional, okay? And then in here, we're going to say that this is then going to be the value, okay? In case none is going to have no value, basically. Well, we don't need a semicolon there. In case then sum, right? And all we have to say here is value. That is it. And we just compile it just to check that the compiler is all happy days with our code, which it is. All right. So let's create a variable with this. All right. Let's just call it other message, and we used string in the other one. In this my optional, we're going to use an integer, all right? And what we do with this is we could say my optional right here, and then just say dot, and then say sum, and then put say like 5 in it. That works perfectly well, right? And if this is the first time you've seen the use of enums as values like this, then this is how we use them. But because we've already defined the type here, we've used type annotation to say that this is an enum with a generic type of int, right? Don't panic, it's an enum, right? And so we can remove this completely because it knows, hey, go and find this enum, and anything after this dot is going to be one of the cases of it. Now, this sum has one property that is going to have an associated value, and we could literally name this dog, cat, or anything up here. Whatever you place up here is like the kind of placeholder variable name that's going to go here. All right. And when we say sum, we have to give this a concrete type. And a struct, which is what an integer is a struct, is a concrete type. A class is a concrete type, and so on, right? You can't use protocols here. So this is now assigning other message with this one value. So what we do know now is that our my optional, and we can write other message and then say other message 1 as well. We could write here none. Right, and this is more than allowed. And so basically, when it has a nil value, right, then all it is saying is that it's going to return on the none. So if someone says that it's this is basically all that's happening. I don't want to go too deep into it, but we now have two options here, and with inside of the enum, if it is when you do the test of it. If it is none, then there's no value, all right? And if it is sum, then you have the value. But you really need to have a function to be able to extract that data. So the compiler in the background is doing this work for you. It's either returning nil if it's none, or it's returning the value of value in an if-let statement, etc., etc. So this is all like magic in the background that the Swift compiler is doing for you for your code. And this is basically all it is. So this video has given you a good quick overview of what an enum is and how we use it. I make other videos talking exactly about enums, but you've seen right now a quick view of an enum, how to create one, and you've obviously been just suddenly showing the world of generics, okay? And don't be too scared of generics. Try and start putting just try and look at it a little bit from the beginning, right? And then you'll have a better understanding of it in the future. But if you just keep pushing it aside and ignoring, generics is a huge part of Swift, and it is a super beneficial part as well. And later on, you're not going to understand some code as it gets a little bit more difficult. So my advice is learn about generics. Okay. With that said, I hope you've got something out of this one video. It's not so much basics. This is a little bit more advanced, or let's call it an intermediate level. However, I like to teach people what I believe are the basics, and this is something that you should learn as the basics. And if you get a good fundamental knowledge of this in the beginning, then when you get onto the intermediate stuff, this is just going to be a piece of cake. So with that said, hopefully you like this video. Hopefully you're going to think about subscribing to my channel. If not, don't worry about it. Otherwise, just do the old sharing stuff. And if you've got any questions, queries, concerns, feedback, then let's have a conversation in the comment section down below. With that said, thank you very much for watching. My name is David Thorne, and see you in the next video. Ciao, ciao. Goodbye.